Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. With me today is Brian Adams. He's the founder and CEO of Hudson Botanical Processing and the founder of Nimbus Cannabis Company. Thank you very much for joining me today, Brian.
Awesome, David. Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. Brian, I always like to start the podcast with a little bit of background. What was it that gave you your start in the cannabis industry?
So I'm younger probably than most. In my position, I'm very fortunate of that. So I actually have only worked in my professional career in cannabis, which is kind of, I think, unique to someone who's a little bit on the younger side. So I went to CU Boulder for college, graduated in 2017, and just went right into the industry out there and was really fortunate to get an amazing job at Wana. That was when they were like just only in Colorado, or maybe they just had launched in Oregon, I believe. So, but they were like the gummy company, of Colorado and I think of the world at the time. So I had a really amazing experience there where I learned so much in a short period of time. And um, honestly, I intended on riding that wave with them. I could clearly see they were going places, and I really enjoyed, my boss at the time. Shout out to Mike Hennessy, who's still over there today. He was, a great mentor of mine. He really taught me a lot, and then I kind of just kept watching Massachusetts move along, like which is where I'm from originally, and I really did always want to like start my own company and kind of do my own thing and write my own destiny. But I just thought I was a little too behind the eight ball, a little too like young with how things were progressing because we voted in Massachusetts for recreational in 2016, but the state really dragged their feet to initiate the program and get it set up. So that kind of played right into my hand. I got this like unbelievable master's degree of in the cannabis industry, more or less, out in Colorado, and then kind of came back home and started the company, Hudson Botanicals, that's here today. And that's kind of how I cut my teeth, I guess you could say. And then, I learned a lot about the nuances of the industry in Colorado and kind of took on and built on everything I learned to start our company. I mean, Juana didn't do extraction, but it was always something that I was very like interested in and would always pay attention to, and there was projects that involved it. And so I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I could see that the partners that Juana worked with on the input side and extraction side um, seemed to have a great business model and seemed to like work really well with them. So once I started to like see that, like a light bulb went off, and so that's why when we started Hudson Botanical, we really wanted to be an extraction first company. And that's kind of how I got my start.
So what was it about that business model that created that aha moment where you're just like, I think I can do this on my own?
I think it was just like, there's someone's got to provide the services and the picks and shovels kind of thing. And like, THC is the precursor of every product that we consume, and anything past flower has to be converted into an oil. And so I just saw that as I think like a great opportunity, to get into. And I was a geology major in college, and science is something that's always in math have always been extremely, has come naturally to me and always something of high interest to me. And when I was brought into Wana, I was brought on to do a lot of training and development work for them for externally and internally. So like I was kind of deep into a lot of the scientific articles and journals, like of what was available at the time, like learning and understanding and distilling it down into simplified training that could be used for the staff and for the sales team and for budtenders and customers and what have you. So I kind of just kept learning and learning and was like, all right, this isn't like crazy complicated stuff, but if you have the right amount of investment and the ability to just roll up your sleeves and turn some wrenches, I think I can figure this out. And then I moved back home and still took forever. The state was still dragging their feet. It took us 20 months, which we're probably like one of the fastest, I think, of the early days to submit a license, get open. It took us about 20 months from application submittal till we were open. So in that time frame, I just was really kind of messing around at home and in the garage type thing to like kind of set a good framework. And then we started with a real shoestring budget here because in the early days, when oil was $30 a gram in Massachusetts, granted our inputs $1,000 a pound for trim in the early days. It was kind of crazy, but we just kind of were able to roll with it. And because there was a lot of meat on the bone, we made a lot of mistakes over the years. But in those early years, mistakes didn't really hurt as much as they do now. So we were able to keep building, and every dollar we made, we reinvested and really scaled the company into a good little extraction powerhouse here in Massachusetts. And along the way, Nimbus Cannabis Co. was born, and that's kind of my baby of just trying to bring forward a product that we're proud about, that that I smoke, that we all smoke on a regular basis, and just trying to put forth a really great consumer experience because it's not always the case in recreational cannabis. It's really hard to do this at scale.
I was I was fascinated how you studied geology. What was the original long-term goal? Like, what was your original career goal when you started in geology?
Yeah, that actually goes funnier even further back. Honestly, geology was always going to be my backup plan. Cannabis was always my like where I really wanted to be. When I was in high school, uh, like the medical thing was becoming like mainstream media, recreational. Like Colorado just passed recreational cannabis. Like when I was I think a senior in high school, something like that. So it was starting to become more prevalent. We had this really young English teacher, and he like split us in half and said, "All right, half of you guys are gonna uh, do a debate for legalizing cannabis, and half are gonna be against." And that like really opened my eyes up to like I was smoking weed with my buddies and stuff, but I didn't really fully understand the like greater economics of it and like how intertwined it was in like culture. Like I thought it was just like would smoke weed with my buddies on the weekend for fun and like try to hide in the back of our house or whatever. And it really opened my eyes, and I was like, wow, this is amazing what's going on. And started kind of researching what was going on in California and Colorado and those early states and just kept following it. And as when I went to college, I still was always following it and paying attention to it, and was like, I knew this is really what I wanted to get involved with. But if this goes to shit or I can't figure it out, geology is, an amazing kind of backup plan because I really, really enjoyed my time studying geology, and the people in the space are right up my alley. I love the outdoors, so being able to be outside for a good majority of your job was really appealing. Um, but I really wanted to be in cannabis, so that's kind of how it all came to be an interesting story.
No, that's really cool, and it's cool that that teacher was able to make such a difference in your career path. What can you tell us? I understand that it's a proprietary process that you use, but what can you share with us about that ethanol extraction process?
Ethanol is, I feel like, the ground and pound extraction method, in the industry where there's like you're just trying to squeeze as much of the THC out as humanly possible. But what comes with that is like how much work are you going to do downstream? So like in the early days for us, it was a lot of figuring out of like how long to really soak for, how much agitation, like how fine do we want to be ground or how not fine do we want to be ground? And eventually kind of what we learned over the course of figuring all this out is you're kind of got to be a balancing act of like how much work needs to be done post extraction to get to the final goal. Like you may be able to squeeze a little bit more, but if you have to do 2 to 3 more days of work, excess winterization, excess filtration, you know, other refinement to make sure that doesn't gunk up your distillation stream, like is all that extra work worth it for a small increase in yield? And we ultimately kind of figured out that maybe going colder and a little faster and skipping those other steps and be able to get to distillation faster and cleaner and produce a cleaner end product with less steps in between, in our like research, I guess, and figuring it out is like that extra work isn't really worth the little bit of extra yield you may be able to squeak. So, in terms of like the ethanol side, we really focus on like just being as cold as humanly possible, really consistent, mill size for when we're prepping, a good clean agitation, and then just kind of basic filtration. We try to stay away from media as much as we can. Um, and then we, rip off the solvent as quick as we can and get it to get it to distillation. So that's kind of our process, more or less, from a high view.
What were some of those early mistakes where you're like, okay, that one hurt, but it was a teachable moment?
Honestly, the big one is like media. Like we had a lot of just like issues of like trying to do those longer soaks and trying to extract more, and then you had to use media to clean it up. And you get some of those, you mess with some of the not so great medias, it definitely affects the chemistry of your oil. And then, when your pH gets swung in either direction and we run benchtop distillation here. We don't run like whip films or rolling films or anything like that. I'm more on the like, I'd rather run a few tabletops and get similar output than a really big, fancy, expensive machine. So that's just my philosophy. I think it's also a little easier to teach people and understand, and also it's a little less intimidating for a general operator to come in and run a bench top. So messing with media definitely caused some problems where you start to see like small spikes of D8 or D10 or any other isomerization in those frames. And like maybe it didn't kill us because we were still able to like move the oil, but it definitely, like, when you start seeing potency like over time dwindle and dwindle and you can't figure out what's going on, and then you eventually you scrap the media and realize it was that the whole time. That was an interesting learning lesson with ethanol extraction that we figured out.
What's some of the equipment that you can't live without?
I mean, you definitely need a centrifuge. You can't go without a centrifuge, in my opinion. You can get away with like no chillers and stuff if you have a shit ton of freezers, but you just scale out of that really quickly if you're trying to scale your business. So, you really can't be without a centrifuge with ethanol extraction, but a close second is definitely the ability to chill and maintain those temperatures is really, really important.
I mean, talking about usability, is labor, skilled labor in particular, an issue for you?
We're really lucky where we have great retention here. I mean, we treat our staff really, really well, and we try to be as flexible with everyone as we can. We try to be as human as possible. At the end of the day, we're a family owned and operated company, so we get it that life comes up and life happens, but we've always had the best experience with working with people and kind of scaling with the business, like them scaling professionally, also as the business is scaling. So we all learned kind of a lot of this together, and because of that, we've had a lot of people that have been with us for a long time. And as I was learning, as the company was learning, they were learning too, and they've done a really good job of adapting to the change and being willing to make big changes and big leaps forward. So we're really fortunate where we have a great staff and we're really solid on the labor side. But I know in other areas it's tough. I mean, we're also fortunate too that being in Eastern Massachusetts, we're a highly densely populated area. So there are people out there that you can find if necessary, but we really try to select the right person from the beginning and really invest in them and the company's future so that it makes sense for them to stay. And so we're really fortunate on the labor side of things.
No, I'm a huge proponent from promoting from within as well, especially once you've identified those high performers, really just giving them as much room as possible to grow just because they're almost as invested in the company as you are.
Especially too, like, because we started with a shoestring budget, and like I think everyone saw that we were hustling to like put as much money as we could back into the business. I think that's like reassuring too, especially in the early days when like cannabis was so new and exciting and people just wanted to get into it to see what was going on, or they were passionate about the plant, so they wanted to be involved. There was a lot of passion you can play off of. I think now it's more or less known that it's kind of just another job, just in a unique field. I think a lot of that has unfortunately like fizzled away, or some of the higher performers got burned and left the industry. But we tried to do the opposite. We really tried hard to work with our people to grow.
Are you completely vertically integrated at this point?
So we do cultivation and manufacturing, but we do not do retail.
Okay. Up until you started your cultivation, what did you do when you came to sourcing your raw material?
So our grow is really small, very craft focused. I mean, I think last year we harvested like just over 1,400 pounds for the year, but we processed like 42,000 pounds for the year. So we bring in a lot. Um, Again, being here early was a huge advantage. We were able to establish a lot of great relationships. We have a list of customers that have been working with us for years and keep us well fed, and they know that we're going to do a good job for them, and we know that they're going to keep us maintained. So we have a really great mutual relationship, and we have a great established supply chain that allows us to kind of do what we do. If it wasn't for those great partners, we would not be where we are today. But it was a lot of hard work that we worked through together to get, to get to the position we're in today.
What are some of the things that you do with a craft grow that help you sort of stand out among your competition?
I mean, we give it like a little more like tender love and care. Like we crop steer in 2 rooms, but we run soil in our smaller room. So we get to do unique stuff like that. Like the smaller room also gets a lot of like hand watering, it gets special teas, a lot of special work, and like every plant gets worked on by everyone. And then also too, like we're not as like dedicated to having to like, we have 3 flower rooms. We're not some of these places that have 10 flower rooms the size of our whole entire facility that are on just such a strict schedule that if they don't turn it, they're going to lose millions of dollars. And then also the whole schedule downstream is going to fall apart. So we have the flexibility to move around and let the plant tell us when it's, like when to harvest, when it's done. It allows us to bring in genetics that maybe some other places aren't willing to touch because we're not so tied to a dead set schedule. We can be plus or minus a little bit and still be okay. And we rotate our staff around too. So, everybody gets to do a little bit of everything and just trying to be unique and different. And then really focus on making sure that like our cure and post harvest is really taken care of. Is something that as a smaller place, we can put more time and attention to detail and that maybe some other places can't.
Do you think being a younger founder and CEO gave you a little bit more, made it easier for you to roll with those punches when they came to you, where, you didn't necessarily have the experience to be like, man, this is going to break us?
Yeah, I think there's definitely that. I mean, I don't have a family or nothing, so like worst came to worst, I always knew I could put a paycheck on hold if need be. Luckily, I don't think I ever really needed to do that. I didn't make any money for the first couple of years, but haven't had to ever put like a paycheck on pause. Yeah, definitely allows you to roll with the punches. I think one thing of being like a younger founder and growing up in the internet age is like I felt like I was able to do a lot from a computer that like traditional business people would have hired a consultant to do or this or that. And I think you saw that a lot in this space, and that's what burned a lot of the some of these companies and have them underwater now is because they overspent or like maybe didn't do the research they necessary or didn't know how to do it. So I think growing up in like the internet age and being able to figure things out a little easier on your own with the resources, that the internet provides, I think was a pretty unique advantage, honestly, in the grand scheme of it.
How do you think, um, new AI chatbots could impact companies going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I think about a lot. I know a lot of people, it's on top of mind for a lot of people. I think it's already doing a lot of work for us, like on the admin side and in the like on the back end of things. You know, I it seems like I don't really know, but it seems like we're still far away from like maybe fully like robotic intervention in production, at least here with what we do. Like I think it'd be hard for like a humanoid robot to do some of the tasks that we do unless there's a major breakthrough that I'm not seeing. So I think AI is great for like admin stuff, like data management, like data mining, like understanding things and like being able to like get instant like feedback and like to be able to help, assist with certain things that are going on from like a strategy perspective. I think it's a great place to just shoot and bounce ideas off of. But in terms of like doing the work, the real work of making the products day to day, to me, it seems like we're still kind of a little bit of a ways away. I mean, we have some amazing machinery that can do a lot of great stuff, but I still think we're going to need humans for a while to make sure that they run efficiently and put out a quality product that that a human wants to consume.
On the topic of putting out a quality product, what is your approach to making vapes?
Well, it depends like really on the extract. Like there's obviously so many different extracts out there. Like if you're producing a live resin, rosin, or a distillate vape, like they all got to be treated, you know, differently. And A, how they're handled, how they're ultimately shot into the vapes. Downstream packaging obviously can be pretty standardized amongst that, but even the hardware selection that needs to be chosen for each product is super, super important in my opinion. And it's also a constantly evolving thing. Like hardware technology keeps changing pretty frequently, and also just figuring out like where the best hardware producers are and making sure that you're putting forth all the hard work that the team put in to make the extract is being presented to the consumer, and it's definitely a challenge for sure. And things change in that in international supply chains to ensure that consistency that you're looking for is definitely a tough one to manage. Um,
So, how do you do that research, making sure that you have the best hardware?
I mean, we just try them. You got to smoke them all. To be honest, you got to get them out. You got to try them your first. You got to get it through like we always do like the initial barrier of like our staff, like what's their survey, what's their sensory survey, what's their thumbs up. Then as we get through that, we get some good data and understanding, and then we'll push it forth to friends, family, within the industry to get a larger sample size. And then after that, we feel comfortable, we bring it to market. I mean, obviously in the early days, it wasn't really like that because we didn't have a whole lot of cash to do stuff like that. And B, it was more so like, let's try things out with our friends and see what sticks and just roll with it. And that's what we did in the early days. But as of late, we've been trying to expand our kind of research and development and product innovation and development to a higher like level and wider scale so that we can have better market information to craft the product for what ultimately the consumer at the dispensary wants, not just what we want. Because what we want, unfortunately, is a lot different than what it seems like the average consumer wants.
And I mean, are you talking about what when you talk about the average consumer? Are you talking about just high potency, not a lot of craft?
Yeah, just Disty's king for a reason. Fruity flavors dominate for a reason. You know, uh, that's what the data shows. I don't know if it's an education gap or what have you. I'm sure that'll change in time, but like if I were to go shop at a dispensary, that's not going to be the product I choose to purchase with my hard-earned money and walk out the door with. Like I'm going to choose a live resin or a rosin based. I'm not even a huge fan of rosin in like vape form. If I'm going to go vape form, I'm choosing like live resin, but if I'm going to pick a dabbable, depending, I'm going to go pick some live rosin or some live resin, and just like, especially in Massachusetts, our concentrate category is so small that a lot of people just don't know it's out there, and everyone just seems to want to buy a disposable vape that's convenient and simple and just does the trick.
What are some of your favorite products that you manufacture?
Flame live resin is probably what I'm most proud of. It's a process that I worked really hard at over the years. It's always exciting when we get like a really great strain in from either our grow or one of our cultivation partners, and then like you really see that expression come through, and it's a lot of fun when you can like go out and see the plant growing in person and you get the smells and you're like that's going to be something really amazing, and then you run it through the process and the machines and a beautiful extract comes out. That's something that is really fun and rewarding, and also like a product that I really really enjoy. I think like well made live resin is some of like the cleanest extract that you can smoke, and I think because of that you get a great effect and great flavor. But there are also, unfortunately, on the flip side of that is a lot of people doing it the wrong way, which give it a really bad name. um, but in my opinion, we do it the right way, and we're really focused on presenting the plant and how it was given to us and not adultering it in any way shape or form unless it really needs it. But If it's good live resin, live, fresh frozen that's coming to us, like it's not going to touch any media in our facility. It's going to be well handled and extracted with care. Um, and it's going to be a true representation of what that living plant was.
In your opinion, what are the top three strains on the market right now?
Top three. Mm, hard to say, honestly. I feel like it's change. I feel like there's a change going on. Um, we'll see, but like I personally like a lot of the older school stuff, to be honest with you, like the lemon trees of the world. I'm a big fan of that. I really like a lot of the blueberry type terps when it comes to like the more candy type stuff. Um, and then I also like just I do like a real like great old school OG Kush. But that's me. Like again, that's not what the customers are going to choose. The customers are going to go for these like, just whatever the highest potency, these like candies and the cookies and the glitter bombs and like this the toad venom stuff that everyone's talking about now, which who knows if it's really real or what it really is, but just whatever the next hype strain is, as long as it posts a number that's 30%, it'll sell at a dispensary. It's a legal dispensary, it seems.
You got to watch out for that toad venom. My friend said it took him to the rings of Saturn.
Focus on balance, just like anything in life.
Exactly. I noticed that you also offer contract manufacturing services. What is life like as a contract manufacturer in the industry right now?
Definitely a good place to be. We do quite a bit of it. We mostly do it for in-state people, but we do work with some out-of-state brands that are, looking to enter the Massachusetts market. It really just comes down to like really good communication, a well thought out like system to manage it and just kind of getting the job done. So like for us, we feel like it's a great place to be. It's definitely a good chunk of our business. We mostly only really play in the pre-rolls, infused pre-rolls, and concentrate in vape manufacturing space. We don't really do any edibles anymore these days. But it's a good space to be in. You just got to be able to have volume so that you can turn around quickly for people and also do them methodically and at a level of quality that's acceptable to the customer. And then once you get really good, you can maybe make adjustments on quality and you can present that to the customer of, hey, we can lower the level of maybe touches here, but we can't guarantee this level of quality on the backside. So we can produce more for you. So therefore we can give you a little bit better of a price on the manufacturing, but it's, we can't be like, we told you guys, so we can't be getting phone calls 2, 3 months from now saying that you're getting all these returns when we gave you a fair warning. But we like to just give everybody the option to make that choice if we can be a little more efficient. But in theory, we're not going to get the quality of product out the back end that maybe we would want our brand. We'll be transparent and upfront with that. And if the customer signs off, then we'll do it and save them a couple extra pennies here and there.
In your opinion, has testing improved throughout the industry?
I would say it's no, it stayed the same. They just don't like approach it in a meaningful, methodical way. And every state's so different. We really just need to see standardization. Like if we had some real good standards that every lab could operate off of, and then the labs just win off good customer service and quality of service. Like that's really how they should be differentiating, in my opinion, is off how well they service their customers, not off because they have a special test that gives their flower 5 extra potency points. Like that's not right. If you get a flu test, you're going to get the same test in Boston as you would in Los Angeles. It's going to go through very similar processes in machines to get that, and that's where we need to get to. So hopefully the industry will keep pushing forward. I mean, Massachusetts seems like they want to be making some drastic changes to help the situation, but they've also been saying that for quite some time now. So we'll see what actually happens.
Are you optimistic that those changes will come?
Optimistic. I think the industry keeps pushing for it in the right direction. I think unfortunately, from the outside, like the optics of the consumer and the public looking in, what we're pushing for, maybe on surface level, doesn't sound like it's moving in the right direction or protecting consumer safety, say, what have you. But like in reality, when you peel back the onion and really see how this all works, like some of the stuff they have set up, although at surface level may sound great, you're really incentivizing, poor conduct, and you're incentivizing, fraud essentially to happen, and that needs to be cleaned up. And unfortunately, to clean that up, you often have to peel back a lot of stuff and go back to the basics so that we can make sure that everything is done, fair and um, is done fairly. And I think we need to peel back a lot of this stuff and also really look at like the science and like actually do some real studies of like what is the real public safety risks here. But like, at the end of the day, like you're smoking a product. Like, is inhaling anything healthy? No. So like let's just focus on making sure that it's not going to be anything that's going to really hurt somebody. But at the end of the day, like you're inhaling smoke. So, I think that's got to be taken into consideration with any rule changes that happen.
So are you talking about kind of relaxing standards over like molds and mildews or in terms?
Big one is like here in Massachusetts, we have to be at 10,000 CFU per gram for all anaerobic material. So it's like basically living or non-living. And a lot of that's like really good beneficial microbes that will cause us to pop. Most of the country's at 100,000. So it's like when you hear, if you don't know, understand that, like you read a headline that says that, you're going to be like, why? They're increasing a level from 10,000 to 100,000, like just so they can sell more weed. Well, no, all the data shows that that's not the case. And actually, the data could show that you could produce healthier plants and a better product if you have those beneficial microbes present, which have to more or less be removed in a program that we have here in Massachusetts. So I think it's stuff like that that's just like nuance. It sounds surface level, it sounds bad, but like in all reality, we should just be testing for species that are really going to harm people, like some of these nasty aspergilluses and things like that that can actually potentially harm people is what we need to be testing for from a speciated perspective, and like let the good microbes be there and be in high levels because that helps the overall microbiome to be a healthy and effective system. And so we need to work to get there. And so that's what I'm saying is like on the surface level, like raising numbers sounds like bad, but in reality, I think it's good. And just like the person who's not doing this stuff day to day is not going to understand that. It looks bad from the outside in, but in reality, I think it's a great thing for the consumer and for the industry.
It just needs like a marketing overhaul. Just like these are good bugs, easy.
Right. These are good bugs. These are good microbes. Like this is healthy. Like you breathe them in all day, every day. Like the air you breathe is probably has higher CFU count than the weed you're smoking. Like, so let's take a look at this.
Um, I had noticed a previous video that you were in. You were using the Orange Photonics Light Lab. Do you still use that for testing internally?
Yeah, we use it all the time. It mostly sits in the grow these days, and we do spot checks and help to harvest, help to select strains, help to understand like what stream it needs to go down, like post harvest or even pre harvest. So that's where it sits most of the day. But in the early days, I used to use it a lot to help dial in our extraction process and ultimately see where our extraction efficiencies are along the way. So it was really a helpful tool and dialing in our extraction process. But now that we more or less have some pretty solid like SOP roadmaps that we can have a great foundation to run off of, we don't use it as often, on the extraction and manufacturing side, but it's still very much used in the cultivation.
No, it just made sense to me in terms of with sort of the testing outside of your control, giving you a little bit more of an understanding as to what's going on in your own house.
Yeah, it's super helpful for that. It's like, especially for a plant, like a plant is so all over the place. It's a natural living thing. So there's just so much nuance to it. So understanding kind of where you're at, it's a great tool for that.
I noticed that you recently spoke about the power of branding. if you have a strong brand, can you boost dispensary sales, and vice versa? How can dispensaries improve brand success?
Yeah, I mean it's a symbiotic relationship at the end of the day. But like as you can clearly tell, some of these brands like they just catch fire, and then like every dispensary wants or thinks they need to carry them for whatever reason. I think there's some merit to that for sure, but also I think people, especially in cannabis, like variety and like a little different flavor here and there. So I think from a dispensary side, always having some level of rotation and fresh and new, whether you're working with existing brands or bringing in new brands to spice things up, I do think is important. And that's like kind of our approach is we're always trying to like innovate, change, release something new, have new genetics in the pipeline so that things don't get stale and things get overchanged. But that's just like on the product side. And then the brand is like keeping it fresh and having a clean and consistent message is super important and also very challenging to continue to evolve and maintain. But it all comes down to telling a good story and finding a community that, can relate to your brand.
Well, it seems like no other industry are people set in their ways with the products they like, but also afraid of missing out.
It's fun. It is. The cannabis consumer is fickle, but also very, I don't know what the word is, very sticky, I guess, at the same time. It's like weird. They'll venture out and try other stuff, but then they seem to come back and stick to something for a bit, but they're always willing to like jump off that thing. And then also if they have like a bad experience, it seems like sometimes you can be written off, even if you had 5, 10, 15 great experiences and one that was not to that same level, you could be lost in that consumer's brain forever. It seems where I feel like in other industries you'll give some people a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt on a product if there was a minor mistake. So it's very interesting.
No, you're right. The consumer does tend to go a little bit more scorched earth than in other industries as well.
Definitely.
What are your expectations for MJ Unpacked coming up?
I'm a big fan of MJ Unpacked. We've been doing it ever since they launched their first East Coast show in New York City. I think 4-ish years ago at this point, I think is when they did that one. The first one, they did 2 years in, yeah, 4 years ago. Because I think they did 2 years in New York City, and then this is their third year coming up here in Atlantic City. It's a great show. It's very well curated. I really like how they do like the brand pillars and the brand experiences, and the trade show is more of like a big networking event than having to go like booth to booth and talk to vendors and this and that. Like, I just think it's a more of like a curated networking event than like a typical trade show. So I really like that style. I think they're really onto something there. And I think it allows you to like have a smaller show floor and pack more people in, which I think creates more conversation because you're likely to just bump into people or you walk around and see all these awesome showcases that all these brands are putting together. And you may just walk up to one and speak to yourself and say, that's super cool. And another person next to you is like, yeah, that is cool. And then you just sparked a conversation. So I just think the like curation of the networking is great. They also do a great job with just their programming in general, I think, like with their conference side of things. Although I don't pay as much attention to that these days as I used to. There is still some that I definitely want to be, I'm looking out for that I want to be in the room and hear the people talking about some of these subjects. So I think it's a great show. I think they do a great job, and we look forward to another great, successful year with them.
I mean, it makes sense because what do people most often come home with stories from trade shows about all the networking, right? And a lot of times that happens off-site. Whereas if that's what the show is, I mean, I could see how that could be a valuable resource.
Definitely. They do a great job of doing it there instead of just like I said, just running around from booth to booth. That's gets chaotic and tiring. And I think they do a great job of making conversations happen on the show floor. And then there is some great stuff outside after that, always is great, but they're one of the better at making sure that conversations happen during the show hours.
So, what are your expectations for the industry going forward? What can people expect from both Nimbus or from Nimbus going forward?
Yeah, I think on the Nimbus side of things, we want to keep expanding the brand methodically. And we don't want to overstretch ourselves, but we really do want to be up and down the East Coast, as I think our focus is on the East Coast. So, if we can lock in a good stronghold in the East Coast over the next 5 years, I think we'd be in a really good place. In terms of Hudson Botanical Processing, that's really the engine that drives everything. It's like our R&D house too, like where we mess around and figure things out. So I'm really excited for HBP to continue to just expand in our small Massachusetts market and just continue to be a leader, making sure we're pushing for sustainable regulations for the industry and the consumer is really important to me. And kind of being here in the home base of Massachusetts, where we have a lot of good relationships we can play on for that is important. I'm hoping that we can build something here that's a really great framework that the rest of the country can look towards as a leader. And I think Massachusetts has the ability to do that. So we'll continue to focus up there, continue to focus on just producing great extract, being really good partners to our contract manufacturing, and just trying to put forth a product that we're proud of and always innovating on, and never being stagnant, and always not being complacent, knowing that we can be better. There is always development to be done. We're always going to be improving, changing hardware, moving on to new and better devices to make sure that the product is consistent and of high quality. And you can definitely chase perfection, but you're never going to get there. And I think that's kind of what we're going for, is we're trying to shoot for the moon and land amongst the stars kind of thing. So that's kind of what we're working on over the next little while here.
You're currently operating in Massachusetts and New Jersey?
Currently producing, yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And the long-term goal is East Coast domination.
I'd love to be in the East Coast. I mean, obviously, it'd be great to be nationwide. It'd be great to go out west, but I think just how established a lot of those markets are out there, it's a much bigger beast to tackle um, than some of the newer emerging markets here on the East Coast.
Anything cooking in that R&D department that you're particularly excited about?
Um, yeah, we got some new vapes that we're cooking up that I'm excited to launch and bring. We're trying to bridge the gap between like the cannabis people and the like fruity botanical people. So we're trying to bring those worlds together. In a it's a format that's been done, but we're just trying to do it at a really high level. So I'm really excited for that one. I'm hoping that maybe we'll start to change the palates of some people to like really see some of the amazing flavors that cannabis has to offer. But I think we're gonna have to like walk them into that over time. So that's kind of part of the long-term strategy, but we'll do it in baby steps. We'll sprinkle in a little bit of the, weed and flavor and some of these great cultivars into the fruity stuff that people have seemed to know and like. And hopefully over time we can train some palates to start to enjoy some more connoisseur level products.
Overall, what are your feelings on the state of the cannabis industry?
I think there's still a lot of positivity and optimism for long term for the industry. I think the overall outlook of the industry is positive. I think there's a lot of economic opportunity and personal opportunity for people. It's a unique group of people that have a lot of passion for one specific thing, and I think there's still a lot of area. There's a lot of room for growth, but that doesn't mean there's not a lot of struggles that need to be overcome in the short term. I do think the industry is up against some formidable foes at the moment, and we see a lot of activity going on at a national level, state to state, of trying to push things back. So the industry's definitely got to come together to combat that. And I think to combat that, we got to run ethical operations. And I think a lot of, unfortunately, things aren't done in good faith in this space. And it's going to take time I think it's been happening, but more and more of those people are going to be riddled out of the space. And as that happens, and more serious, legitimate operators that are trying to do things right, it's only going to bolster the products, the overall quality, and the overall industry as a whole. So I'm very optimistic. There's a lot of great people that work in this space. And I think the people that are many of the people that are on the highest of levels in the space that I've gotten to know over the years, I think they're stewarding the industry in the right direction. But unfortunately, we do gotta, point out and get rid of some of the bad actors that are tainting the industry and ultimately tainting the public's outlook of what we do. And so we just got to focus on doing the right thing at the end of the day, I think.
Brian, I really appreciate you being so generous with your time today. Before we get out of here, is there anything that you want to make sure the Cannabis Equipment News audience either knows about yourself or your work with Hudson and Nimbus?
Anyone that's looking to get into the Massachusetts market, like, feel free to reach out. You can definitely look up our website and reach out. All the emails do come to me, so I'd be happy to talk to anyone who's looking to enter the cannabis scene in Massachusetts. Also, anyone that's looking to fill capacity in their markets. Nimbus is looking for homes in other areas and other places. We're looking for good people that are willing to do good business, and people that care about the quality of the product they're putting out. So I think I'd leave it with that is, we're here to support the cannabis industry and the cannabis community, whether that's perpetuating our brand or bringing people here. We just want this industry to be wholesome and viable for everyone involved.
Brian, thank you again for taking the time, man. I really do appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. And if you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. For Brian Adams, founder and CEO of Hudson Botanical Processing, founder of Nimbus Cannabis Company, I'm David Manti. This is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast, and we will see you next week.
Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.